thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It's a crazy week, being that we go to San Diego and things like that. Hopping from one place to another, but I could not pass the opportunity to really take the time to speak with all of you just because I grew up in the Bay Area. So as soon as I saw some of those some of the photos, some of the things, it just reminded me of where I grew up. I grew up in Berkeley.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
so
nice.
so it's very interesting to see projects like this, especially like we're speaking, of course, the Unabridged Mrs. Vera Daybook, because for me it was just the culture. It was normal. it was it was what I thought life was like everywhere. And then to venture out even further out in California, I live in the Central Valley now, and find out that that's not really the case. That was very different for me.
Yeah.
um, I guess we can start with Robert. Tell us a little bit about the documentary.
Well, the documentary came to me from another film I made, and one of the members of the counterculture community in San Francisco said, you should do a film about Mrs. Vera. And I had never heard about Mrs. Vera or the Verasphere. And so I set up a meeting with Michael just to find out what this was all about. And we spent hours looking at photos of Vera. Vera wasn't there that day, so I hadn't actually seen Vera, but I saw lots of pictures. And they were just getting ready to march in pride with the Verasphere. And I didn't know if I even wanted to make a film. They didn't even know if they wanted a film, but I knew that I had to capture it on camera. And I was heading off for a vacation, and I just sent my crew to Pride and I said, follow these guys. My God, this is madness, and the best kind of madness. And they captured the footage, and then we had further discussions, and we made a short film first, called Verasphere: A Love Story in Costume. And as we were making that, we saw that there was a much bigger story, a story of activism and community. And um, we just kept shooting for years. That's the
Yeah,
story.
it's a heck of a story, and I'm very happy that it's getting out there, because it was such a part of it is such a big part of Bay Area culture, and kind of that light, the beacon of light. I think one of my favorite moments in the film, also as dark as it may be, was as they're playing some of the images of Miss Vera in a garbage truck, and saying how people, somebody made the comment of, people see it as people are throwing us away. There's still so much light. There's still so much life in everyone, in every one of these people. And that really stood out to me. And I mean, I'm kind of fangirling a bit, just because to me, you guys are celebrities. And it's great.
Interestingly, that photo was the first photo we got of Mrs. Vera. That one in the trash truck. Before that, we'd done drag a couple times, but as soon as we saw that, we felt like there's the character. Yeah, so I'm glad that even early on we were getting a response, mostly from ourselves, to the work. But it's expanded since then.
And for both of you, for David and Michael, what has it been like for you guys to go through this documentary process, and be able to look back on the journey that you guys that you both embarked from the beginning, and to see your early inceptions of where you're just trying to trying to really be creative and express yourselves, not necessarily for anyone else, but to see now Verasphere, and how much it's affected other people's lives.
You want to go with that one, babe? I'll respond as well.
All right. The film has been an incredible process for us. We found the absolute right person. We weren't even looking for one. I always figured our first film would be a kind of student documentary kind of thing, but instead Robert brought this level of clarity and the sense of color that's so much a part of our work. He brought to the film, along with his editor Nick and cinematographer Rudy. And it just made it so easy for us to just do what we do and have it documented, because we became on such good terms with Robert. So that was, you know, a wonderful experience. We didn't really know that our story would ever get told. So it's been extremely gratifying to know that it's out there and that the response we get from people can now be shared with like a much wider audience. Because a little to your point earlier, it's like when people see us, it's like it's what they want to be happening in San Francisco more. There's a lot of memory of this street culture, these theater arts, this kind of undefined but explosive creativity. So I think we're very San Franciscan that way, and I think Robert did a great job capturing that.
And back to your question, pretty much of how it's impacted myself as far as storytelling goes and as far as archiving goes. It's right up my alley. I never expected to have a film made about what we're doing. I've been really interested in all kinds of histories, especially gay and lesbian and trans and everything. So I think we just sort of like we're on the sidelines of a lot of that, but at the same time, just saying be yourself. But what I really found was I regained a good chunk of my life, because you go through all those traumas and you forget things that happened. You can't remember dates. Snapshots are all over the place in boxes randomly. Well, this, to make a long story short, got me to reconstruct a timeline, if you will, starting from my childhood. So it was really powerful to do that. And, that led to us having an archive.
For Robert, for you, you have these both of their amazing journeys, really, that like as they're saying, it just really starts at a young age. How important is to make sure that throughout all this color, all these great moments, is to really drive in that it actually comes from a place to some degree of that fight that a lot of people to this day still do not really understand, that people with HIV and AIDS had to go through a couple of decades ago.
Well, it wasn't that difficult for me to portray that story, because it is their story. They had a dark period. There's no getting around that, and we tried to express that, and I think we do that pretty well in the caretaking chapter. I was really struck. I was also I'm around the same age as they are, and I was not the activist gay man that they were. This is kind of a cathartic way for me to give back. I was partying and acting like the pandemic that was happening wasn't going on, and I was living in another part of the country where it wasn't as obvious and present yet. And so to see that these guys were involved in activism, but then they were able to bring this humor and this color and this brightness to a dark time, it wasn't difficult to portray that, because that was their story.
And I have to go ahead. Sorry.
I think you recapitulated that sense of joyousness and these kind of harrowing events. And the film, I think, is constructed in a beautiful way in that it lets the audience experience the lows and then the highs in a way that it really helps them get through what is essentially an AIDS story that has sort of the audacity to have a happy ending. I think that's I'm very pleased with that, because that so closely parallels our own personal experience that the story's based
on. How long has this documentary been in the works? That's a very curious question I have.
Well, I'll answer that. It's a three-parter. Like I said earlier about just sending my crew out and then deciding to make a short film. When did that start, guys? 2016 or 17 or
17?
I think 17.
Yeah, 2017. Short film came. We were in the process of making the feature film, and then COVID hit. And so, you know, and you'll remember in the film the part where David's painting the mural. Well, that all had to stop, and that was going to be our ending. The ending was the mural, and the celebration of life for long-term survivors at this amazing LGBTQ senior center and housing facility. And he was painting a mural, had to stop. We couldn't go in a senior center during COVID. And so what we did was in Pride Month of 2020, everybody's sheltering in place, not knowing what our future holds. We decided to launch it on local PBS on KQED and show what we had so far. We did a 56-minute version for PBS, and they do their art for free, so we gave our art for free. And then my crew just thought, that was it. And I'm like, no, we need to go back in and get the COVID story. What happened to these guys during COVID, and finish our feature film. So that's kind of we've made 3 films. I make a joke that I want to do a DVD, box set, The 3 Faces of Vera, and show all 3 versions that we've made, because they're all different and they have different. The short film and the feature film have completely different footage. So I'm proud to say that the feature is not just an expanded short film. It's actually a whole different film. The short film just pretty much highlights Verasphere, and the feature tells their whole stories.
So you answered my next question, which was, in speaking with filmmakers that make documentaries, your story can change at any time, because you cannot necessarily narrate or script life or society around you. So that was my question, was really going to be, is because COVID could not have been in it. Obviously, it was in nobody's plans. So if that had shifted the direction of the documentary a bit, which of course it did, and you had Michael, you had mentioned in the documentary that I believe that was you, and I apologize if it wasn't, that the worst part of it was not being able to hug. And
Yep.
you guys then were going through your second pandemic, really. How was, can you talk a little bit on how that was for you both, and how you're able to persevere through it, especially after like the great 2019 that you guys had, Grand Marshal and the parade, and then all of a sudden it just shuts down.
Well, that was the most immediately disappointing thing about COVID, was that we had built up all this momentum. In 2019, we just had a lot of really great things, the film being first and foremost going on, and then it was just all sort of taken from us, like everybody experienced. So that was really hard. I think COVID was a little harder on me than it was on you. I shut down a little bit, and that let him work on his archiving, which was a wonderful thing for you to be able to spend your time with.
Yeah, I would say, nobody expected what was happening in 2019, and even when the film was on KQED, we're walking around with masks on. People have no idea who we are, which is really great. We've been recognized a few times since then, but I think the thing it did for me was, as David sort of mentioned, was get into my archiving, organizing my photos more, and working on my writing and other things like that. So the film in itself, because of the way the story is told, for me, it's very fulfilling in that aspect. Robert persisted, the team persisted even through COVID, and we got something that no one knew was how that story was gonna go. So I love that we got that.
And it was a rough couple of years, because we're used to an interaction with our audience in public spaces, and it's a non-commercial interaction, which people are always trying to figure out what we're promoting or what we're selling. And then they realize that we're not doing any of that. It's just an artistic experience. And they get really excited by, or intrigued by, the fact that there's no commercial end to all this effort that we're putting into sharing with them. not
Yeah.
sure where my
I gotta ask, where does that creativity come from? Because I mean, every piece, regardless of how simplistic or as whimsical or as I don't really even know how far I can words to describe it. They're simply amazing. And then as you get closer to them, you realize it's a can, it's a bottle, it's things that everyday things that you guys are finding that you guys have put together. It is just stunning. I don't think I have the ability to be that creative.
Thank you. It's I for me the costumes come really easily, but I appreciate the response that they get from people. I basically conceived of the costumes as props for the photos. So they weren't supposed to have like a life as a costume beyond a photo shoot. I didn't make them to last, but they did last. And they, they're all plastic and polyester, so of course they last. So, they began to build up as a sort of collection of these odd things. And that just inspired me to look at everything around us in terms of its, how well it's designed and how much it's neglected. And we sort of like, those were the materials I was drawn most to. And then making the outfits, it's a lot like doing a macaroni Mother's Day card. All it has to do is look like a it doesn't even matter if it looks like a heart, because it's sweet. So that's my essential aesthetic that I try to bring to it. I'm always trying to surprise everyone else and myself with these costumes, and that keeps them a little energized, I think.
And a part of our collaboration is that we would go find supplies and materials. We look at things differently. What can we do with this thing here? That might work as a hat. How about this? So in that level, there was a lot of collaboration on getting the materials together. And obviously over the years, we got it all from thrift stores and different places back when they were really affordable.
And when we first got together, it's like your health was not great, my health was not great either. And it's really all what we had the energy to do was usually go to a thrift store, and just, we didn't have any money, so we could spend $5 and get out and stay engaged in a way that we really didn't feel up for much else. And it just, that actually sort of sustained us in a way and gave us energy and focus and an artistic presence.
Yeah.
Is it we spoke a little on this earlier, but now kind of following those statements about how is it for you guys to see that people have taken that creativity and then being able to also use that as a beacon of light, as a way to also motivate themselves to keep going, to really be proud of bringing these characters, these colors and this life out of them through making projects like the ones you have?
It's for me, it's incredibly rewarding to have to work on a body of work that people respond to automatically. And that's I think it's kind of rare that people be so intrigued by something that they're just passing in the street. I've lost my train of thought. What's the question again?
No, just how rewarding is it for you to see other people be able to also.
Yeah, it's rewarding for me in a lot of ways. It's rewarding from as a senior who's lived here since '79. It's an echo of the times you were mentioning, the early days. It's an echo of it. And as I mentioned, I think in the film, I lost everybody 2 or 3 times over. And what I loved was about all the things I did, even through the activism stuff, was connecting with people and cause and effect. That we do something and hey, look what we did here. What I see now as an expansion of that through the film is we've lectured to 2 or 3 different places, and we've had young students come on board and actually make costumes and join us. To me, that's the continuum. That's exactly the way community works in my mind. And they get excited, they're happy. Some of them really shine, and the next time they're like, I can't wait to go next year. I can't wait. that to me is, you know, the source in a lot of ways and the reward in a lot of ways.
A lot of people come to it thinking that they can't do it, that they need permission, that they're not artistic or creative enough. And the workshops are really wonderful in that, you know, all they really need is permission to play again with this stuff. And then lo and behold, they produce something that's very unique and specific to them. So that's my essential experience of it. So I'm thrilled that we can do it for other people as well. And I think that there's also a sense of just like immediate recognition, like from people in the Midwest or wherever they are. They don't even have to be at the workshop. They see it and they understand that it's embracing like this weirdness that we're supposed to like keep under lock and key. And those people are everywhere. So I love that there is a film and that it can go to the Midwest. You can go anywhere and reach these people who are not in the great position of being in San Francisco, where it's easy to do. You know, people wanting to do this kind of thing in other locations have to be a lot more careful about it. So, you know, I like that we can be that thing that they recognize and feel connected to, even at a great distance.
And for me, it's been great to see a transition from the photo series where Mrs. Vera is always by herself. That was fueled by a certain kind of creativity, my psychological muse and avatar, Mrs. Vera. And, you know, to see it move from that into creating a tribe. When you think about it, I think about the isolation of the era that we went, the dark times, the dark days. So I was saying the other day that it's kind of like light and shadow, you know, it's like all this darkness, how do you bring some light into it? It's really truly for me that simple, and it's palpable. That's the most amazing thing.
He's the light and I'm the shadow.
Well, the point is, you
And
both
they brought the
complement each
color.
other.
They brought the color to me too, Emmanuel. I'm the right person because I appreciate this pop ethic that they both have and that they filled their places with. And I had a lot of that stuff. I just had it put away. And now it's like everywhere. I dress up more. I mean, pretty outrageously. I've pulled all my toys out of the closet. I have, you know, literally from like the closet. I've collectors, you know, posters and baubles and you know, tickets and flyers and all this, and now I've adorned my world with it a little bit more, and so they brought that to me too. I had it, but I pulled it out of the mothballs and show it off proudly now.
I like to tell people I lost my train of thought.
Well, I want to pick up real quick on the impact on others. I loved it when our artist friend Michael said that he looked at color in a completely different way after meeting us and joining us. And I hear that from people fairly often, like, you know, they change their perspective or suddenly they show up in some really interesting, you know, really loud, bright pop outfit because, well, we knew you were going to be here. So it's nice, you know, it's just nice to see that. And then people take the initiative and do it. And I think what Robert did in the film is he captured every aspect of it, like people's experience of what it was like, the actual physical dressing up. I love that we have that footage because it was like that when we were Grand Marshals, we had about 110 people, I believe, in our costumes. And we'd always been on the ground, you know, running along with everybody, but this time we were in a convertible. And at one point I looked back and I saw this ocean of brightly colored plastic and I realized, wow, I would never have seen that, you know, if it hadn't been for this situation. And also to see the footage of that particular time and other times, it's really powerful because I'm usually just moving forward. I'm not looking back, how does everybody look, you know? So it's very rewarding in that way from creativity and other people.
And I love telling people that, you know, sort of get bit by the bug, like Robert or any of the people in the group. It's like it's your problem now. You know, it's like you've been, you know, it's like you can see what my problems are, but now it's they're your problem. And that's like wonderful to see the people in the group. Like this year, they instrumental in the workshops and in organizing the whole pride thing, and they really stepped up and made the whole experience for us much easier than it's been in several years. And, you know, it had sort of reached the maximum capacity that we could do right before COVID hit, so we didn't know how we were going to continue. So that hiatus, as unpleasant as it was, did help us sort of reformulate an age-appropriate energy expenditure for this, and it's worked beautifully this year.
Yeah, that's been a really nice part of seeing something that we started so far back turn into something that is now. And I could write it, but it wouldn't be the same. You need the color. You've got to have that color. And the other thing I was going to say about the film is that organically, the music came from friends of ours who are in the Verasphere, and that would be Andy Cowett and Stephen Clark. Is that right, Robert? Yeah. And
yep.
The design for the poster was done by a great friend of mine, Michael Johnstone. He's in the film. Just various aspects, the documentary touched people's lives in other ways. And if it hadn't been for us all knowing each other, the likelihood of friends of ours doing the music or the art was pretty remote. But it worked out beautifully. And I think it speaks to the cohesion of the people that have joined us. We never have big dramas or hassles. They're encouraged, they're enthusiastic, and I think that's what really comes out of it for me.
And I think when you're with us, it's like gender and orientation, they just don't matter. They're just completely irrelevant. It's like, who's wearing that costume this year? Is it a non-binary youth or an old straight lady? It doesn't really, it just doesn't matter. And it's a very playful way of not caring about that, which I'm proud, because I think that's a little bit of a hard sell in today's environment. But we've been doing it for a long time, where the character may be male, it may be female, it just doesn't matter.
And one of the things that for making the film that I really enjoyed, and I think that obviously as we get closer to modern day, it gets better. But I love the way that the colors, we start with pictures, of course, older pictures, so they're not as bright. They're kind of, but as the film progresses, it seems to get more vibrant and vibrant and vibrant. Was that done on purpose so that by the time we get to the finale, it's just bright, shots and colors of Miss Vera, and just kind of seeing that light that, despite where it came from, it progresses all the way to what it is now.
Yeah, we have photographers that have followed us for years. And the other part about people joining in is they get to be, as one of my friends said, she goes, I love doing this. It's like you're a rock star for the day, but then you go home and just live your life.
Yeah, you don't have to be Tom Cruise after 5 o'clock.
Right. So, basically that to me is a great aspect of the synergy we have as a group of people. It really works that way.
And one of the things I was most thrilled about with the film, which I knew was going to tell the story really well, was exactly to your point, how pretty and colorful and like the experience of us it was. And I think Nick and Rudy and Robert did an amazing job editing this kind of kaleidoscope imagery, negative and positive, in a way that really built to a very uplifting conclusion.
Robert, you had something on that?
It's interesting that you said that, and I'm going to make sure that I tell my editor that you noticed that. I'm sure he had that in mind. Absolutely. Plus, their progression and their evolution of how they built the costumes, is represented. They started off like Mark Trevorrow says in the film. They were just a little bit, chaotic at first, and now they're like couture. And and technology helps, 2K, 4K, and all that. you know, from the early film to, you know, the bright digital imagery. But yes, they, you know, they got more elaborate as time went on.
All right, well, thank you all for your time. I could honestly spend a whole lot more time talking with you all. Just an amazing story, and to me, kind of, you guys mentioned it. I know I mentioned in the beginning, but I grew up in this Bay Area, San Francisco culture, so to me, it's normal. To me, it was every day. But to many people around the country, around the world, it's not the case. So I'm glad that there is a film like this, in order to bring some positivity, bring that light into somebody who really needs it in such a creative way. So thank you all, and it's been a pleasure speaking with you all and meeting you
Thank you, Manny.
virtually.
Thank you. Thank you so